discovered as I really pondered this out, you know, obviously I had motivation to want to get rid of those Coke bottles, but not at any price, as I've already said. And the number one priority that I came to, and this is the take-home message, I hope. Number one is you want a safe procedure. This gentleman unfortunately has keratoconus. We can't do him safely in both eyes. And so he's not a good candidate at this point. Fortunately, there's not a lot of folks out there that have that particular condition. But if it's not safe for you, you don't want to do it. I don't care if it's been great for your family member, like his mother, or your spouse, or your neighbor, or your best friend. If it's not safe for you, you're done. Okay? That's the first priority. Actually, once you've met all the criteria, and it takes about 3.5 hours of careful scanning and examination to see if you're a good candidate. When people come in here for a LASIK evaluation, it's a 3.5-hour exam. You have things done, scans done on your eyes you've never seen before, or will never see again in all likelihood, unless you come here. But those things give us enough information to let us know whether or not it's a safe option for you. And once we know that, then we can tell you whether or not it's a safe option for you. But until you have that done, you don't know. And I marvel when people say, well, I had a LASIK evaluation, and I say, well, what was it? Well, I went in and they said, they looked at my prescription and they said, they ran a credit report on me and they said I'm a good candidate. And I look at them and I think, you gotta be kidding me, you know? But that's a typical LASIK evaluation. That's a free evaluation. It's really a wallet biopsy. If you've got the money and you've got 2 eyes, you're a candidate. And that is not what makes you a candidate. You have to have enough things in line to be a good candidate. That's just the beginning. You also have to have realistic expectations, okay? And you have to know what it is, we have to know what it is your visual needs are. You may have a specific occupation that requires some things that other people don't. And we may need to find out if, under those circumstances, this is going to be an acceptable option for you. And we can do that if we spend the time to figure it out. But oftentimes people will come back for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 visits before we figure all that out, okay? Safety number one. Now, when it comes down to if you are a candidate and you end up having the procedure, what you just saw in that video, the safety aspects of that are most critically determined by how that flap is made, okay? I just got back from a meeting where all the major manufacturers of lasers and keratomes were there selling their products, okay? A lot of money invested in selling these products, okay? There are probably 16 available keratomes that you can make a flap on somebody's eye with in the United States. Okay, 6 lasers, 16 keratomes. The only one I'm laying under, or putting anybody under that cares enough, that I care about, is that German engineered Hansatome keratome. Why? Because it's the only one that I know is not going to hurt you or somebody I care about. 40%, just over 40% of the doctors in the United States, including Dr. Mabudi and myself, use that instrument to do flaps on people's eyes that trust us to do that. That is all we use, that is all we will use, because that is the only thing that I would lay under, or she would lay under, if we had our own time. In fact, I did. The reason is that nothing else has the safety profile of that machine. Nothing has the engineering profile. Everything else can and will harm patients under certain circumstances, no matter how experienced the surgeon is and no matter how many they've done. And the reason is poor engineering always raises its ugly head and comes to the surface sooner or later. And malfunctions will occur, and if you happen to be the poor soul that's laying there when the malfunction happens, you could be harmed irreparably. You could have a small malfunction problem and have some real grief, or you could lose your sight. There have been at least 4 people in Sacramento that I know of that have lost their eyes from doctors who have used keratomes, not this one, but keratomes that will do the job but are so much cheaper than this one that's the reason, the motivation. The only reason in my mind to use anything but German engineered keratomes to do this surgery is greed, because everything else is a lot cheaper. That number of photos on the back board represent about 2 months worth of LASIK surgery by Dr. Mahmoudi and myself. And about every 2 months, those folks will rotate off and go into one of our books. If we just take that number of people, one of those people that trusted us to do this surgery for them would have had a keratome malfunction and been hurt if we would use the next best instrument. And about in 1 year's time, one that trusted us would probably be hurt badly enough to lose significant sight and may not have any reparation for that, short of a corneal transplant or something much worse than that. And I don't find that an acceptable option. Now, if you do, I wish you well, okay? But for my eyes and for people I care about, German engineering, number one. Germans make great machine tools no matter what you think about the rest of their society. And nobody beats that design. There have been a lot of people try, and I looked at all the new instruments at the meeting I went to, and nobody still has anything that beats German engineering. Okay? If they do, and they can do it safer, then I'm all for it, no matter what it costs, but they can't. That instrument has never blinded anybody, and it's the most widely used in the world, much less in the United States. But 40% are using it, 60% are using something else. So 60% of the people doing LASIK surgery are using other instruments. One of the ones that's the next best has a malfunction rate of about every 200th case. So every 200th time it's used, in experienced hands, when it's functioning perfectly, it will have a malfunction. If you drive out of your car, you drive out of your garage every day, and you know every 200th time you take to the road, your brakes are going to fail, then you're not one of the patients I want to see, okay? Because you really, if you think that risk is acceptable, albeit you don't know when it's going to happen, you really haven't thought this through well enough in my mind. Safety needs to be your number one concern, and safety, as it fits in all the criteria, is absolutely critical.